It was a bright, crowded morning at the legendary city gym. Cameras flashing, fans cheering, trainers running around, and the smell of sweat and ambition hanging in the air. Everyone thought it was going to be another ordinary day of sparring matches and bragging rights. But then, the doors swung open, and the room went silent. A tall figure known to millions as Chuck Norris walked in with that familiar calm confidence. The crowd gasped. His piercing eyes scanned the gym as if measuring everyone's worth in a single glance. No fanfare, no music, no dramatic entrance, just pure presence. And then, from the other side of the gym, a quiet, composed man stepped forward. No flashiness, no gold chains, no dramatic flair, just a calm, focused fighter. It was Manny, known for his lightning, fast reflexes, and a mind as sharp as his punches. He wasn't just a fighter, he was a strategist, someone who let his skill speak louder than words. Suddenly, Chuck Norris stopped in his tracks, and the silence thickened. "I hear you're the best," Chuck said, his voice calm but full of challenge. Manny didn't flinch. He simply smiled. A tiny curve of confidence, almost as if he knew something everyone else didn't. The tension was electric. Trainers whispered, fans leaned forward, and phones were raised. Everyone wanted to capture this historic moment. The gym held its breath. Manny tilted his head slightly, still smiling, and said just one simple line, "I don't need to prove myself to anyone." The words hung in the air like a storm waiting to break. Chuck's eyes narrowed, curiosity sparking under that stoic expression. The crowd murmured. No one had ever seen Chuck Norris face someone so calm, so unshaken. And then, without warning, Chuck raised a fist, not aggressively, but as a challenge. Manny stepped forward, eyes locked on Chuck's, and in that moment, the room seemed to freeze. Everyone knew what was about to happen next would stun the entire gym, and maybe even the world. Who would make the first move? Would it be Chuck, the legend himself, or Manny, the quiet storm? And in just a few seconds, the answer would shock every single person watching. Drop a comment if you think Manny will shock Chuck, and stay tuned. The gym was buzzing with excitement, yet a palpable tension had settled over the room like a storm cloud. Cameras clicked, fans whispered, and trainers hustled to clear space in the center of the ring. It was the kind of Monday morning where champions are made and reputations are tested, yet no one expected what was about to unfold. Chuck Norris stood at the edge of the ring, his arms crossed, his legendary stare scanning the room. He wasn't just here for a casual spar. He came with purpose. Every step he took commanded respect, and every movement carried the weight of decades of experience. People whispered his name in awe, some with admiration, others with a hint of fear. He had fought countless opponents, faced impossible odds, and yet, here he was, calm, poised, yet undeniably formidable. Across the gym, Manny adjusted his gloves. Unlike Chuck, he didn't need to make an entrance or demand attention. His reputation preceded him, not through noise, but through results. Years of disciplined training had forged not just his body but his mind. His eyes, sharp and unwavering, observed Chuck quietly. He didn't rush, didn't boast, didn't try to impress anyone. He simply stood, letting his presence speak for itself. The crowd couldn't help but notice the stark contrast. Chuck, a whirlwind of authority and charisma, radiated power in every move. Manny, the quiet storm, emanated control, confidence, and focus. Some fans whispered to each other, "This isn't just a fight, it's a clash of philosophies." Others pulled out their phones, eager to capture every second of this historic face. Off-trainer after trainer approached the ring, setting up ropes and clearing space. "Everyone, stay back," shouted one of the gym staff. But the excitement was contagious. People edged closer, craning their necks to see what would happen. Even seasoned fighters were leaning forward, knowing that they were about to witness something extraordinary. Chuck stepped into the ring, landing softly on the mat. "So," he said, his voice low but firm, "I hear you're the best around here." His gaze locked on Manny, testing him, challenging him. Manny didn't react immediately. He lifted a glove, barely raising an eyebrow, and gave a small, confident smile. There was no arrogance, just the calm assurance of someone who had faced challenges far greater than this moment. The silence that followed was almost deafening. Every spectator, every trainer, Every fighter in the gym seemed to hold their breath. Chuck took a slow step forward, his fists at the ready. Manny mirrored him, light on his feet, relaxed yet prepared. "I've never backed down from a challenge," Chuck said. "Are you ready?" Manny's answer was simple, almost serene. "I don't need to prove anything to anyone. I just fight when it matters." The words hit the room like a lightning bolt. Some fans gasped, some whispered, and even Chuck's piercing gaze flickered for a moment. Just a moment, before returning to focus. The crowd sensed it. This wasn't just about punches and kicks. This was about skill, control, and respect. For a brief moment, the gym became a universe of its own. Trainers adjusted the ropes, fans whispered in anticipation, and the faint hum of cameras filled the air. And in that suspended tension, everyone knew that the next few seconds would define who commanded not just strength, but true presence and respect. Where are you watching from? Comment below, and tell us, who do you think has the upper hand? Chuck's legendary power, or Manny's calm strategy? The gym felt like it had transformed into a battlefield, yet not a single punch had been thrown. The tension was electric, buzzing through every corner of the room. Every spectator, every trainer, and every fighter in the gym leaned in, unable to look away. The air seemed heavier, thick with anticipation. Chuck Norris and Manny faced each other in the center of the ring, a silent storm swirling between them. Chuck shifted his stance, his legendary confidence radiating with every movement. "I've faced the best in the world," he said, his deep voice cutting through the murmur of the crowd. "You think you're ready for me?" His fists clenched instinctively, and the very floor beneath seemed to vibrate with his presence. Manny didn't flinch. He simply adjusted his gloves, feet perfectly planted, eyes unwavering. There was no trace of fear, no hint of ego, just calm, precise readiness. He didn't need to speak. His posture alone radiated control. But then, with a faint smile, he replied, "Strength alone doesn't win fights. Strategy, patience, and respect do." The gym went silent. Trainers exchanged glances, fans whispered excitedly, and some recorded the moment on their phones. Chuck's eyes narrowed slightly, a mix of curiosity and challenge flickering across his face. He could feel it. Manny wasn't just another fighter to impress. This was someone who demanded respect by being unshakable. Someone whose calm was as potent as any strike. Chuck lunged forward with a swift jab, testing Manny's reflexes. In a blur, Manny sidestepped, his movements smooth and almost effortless. The crowd gasped. The clash had begun, not with a roar, but with precision and discipline. Chuck tried another strike. Faster this time, a combination of kicks and punches that would overwhelm most opponents. Manny dodged, parried, and countered with such grace that even seasoned fighters whispered in awe. The intensity escalated. Chuck's legendary strikes collided with Manny's unmatched speed and foresight. Every punch that Chuck threw was met with a perfectly calculated response. The crowd was on the edge of their seats, some holding their breaths, others cheering with excitement. Phones were raised, capturing every movement, every pivot, every split, second reaction. Chuck, known for his ego and unshakable confidence, felt something unusual. Manny wasn't trying to show off, wasn't trying to impress anyone, and wasn't flinching under pressure. Every strike Chuck made was met with calm control, almost as if Manny could see the punch before it happened. The audience could feel the shift in power. It wasn't just brute strength versus skill anymore. It was arrogance against composure, a battle of philosophies. The trainers shouted advice, but Manny seemed unaffected. Chuck's strikes became sharper, faster, and more unpredictable, yet Manny's strategy never wavered. One particularly fast kick from Chuck came close, and the gym collectively gasped. Manny ducked, countered, and lightly tapped Chuck's side, not to harm, but to demonstrate control. A faint smirk appeared on Manny's face. Chuck paused, surprised, and for the first time acknowledged his opponent's skill without words. The tension in the room was suffocating. Fans leaned forward in their seats, whispering predictions and theories. Some whispered, "Is Chuck Norris finally met his match?" Others shook their heads in disbelief. No one can move like that. The dynamic between the two men was mesmerizing. Chuck's legendary strength met Manny's flawless composure, creating a spectacle that no one would forget. And then came the moment that made the room hold its collective breath. Chuck, frustrated but intrigued, launched a fast combination of punches and kicks, a storm of power. Manny, calm and poised, didn't block or dodge aggressively. Instead, he shifted slightly, absorbed just enough, and then countered with a single precise strike to Chuck's shoulder. The room erupted in shock. Even Chuck's eyes widened slightly. Not with fear, but with realization. This is incredible," muttered one of the trainers. Manny's strategy was clear. He didn't need to dominate. He just needed to prove that patience, awareness, and control could rival sheer power. Chuck, recognizing the brilliance in Manny's approach, paused for a brief moment. Sweat dripped, muscles tensed, and the crowd's excitement reached a fever pitch. As the final seconds of Part 3 ticked away, the gym was completely silent. No one moved. No one dared to speak. The clash between Chuck Norris and Manny had reached a turning point. It wasn't about who could strike harder or faster anymore. It was about respect, strategy, and the realization that power isn't always what it seems. The gym, once a place of casual training and friendly sparring, had transformed into a tense arena of anticipation. Every eye was fixed on the ring where Chuck Norris and Manny faced off, muscles taut, eyes locked, and the air thick with energy. Spectators whispered nervously, some leaning forward, phones held high to capture every microsecond of this historic encounter. Chuck, the living legend, had thrown his mightiest strikes, each one faster and more powerful than the last. Yet Manny remained unshaken, his movements precise and calculated, a calm storm absorbing Chuck's fury. Trainers began to murmur among themselves. They had never seen Chuck challenged like this. The silence of awe was punctuated only by the shuffle of feet and the occasional gasp. Suddenly, in a move so fast it barely registered, Manny shifted his stance, pivoted on his back foot, and delivered a counter that was perfect in timing and precision. Chuck's attack, full of raw power and decades of experience, met nothing but controlled resistance. For a moment, the room held its collective breath, and then shock hit. Chuck stepped back, almost involuntarily, blinking. He had felt it, Manny's awareness, his reflexes, and his ability to anticipate every strike. The gym erupted in whispers and murmurs. "Did you see that? No one moves like that." Chuck just paused. Even the most hardened trainers leaned forward, recognizing that this was no ordinary sparring match. Manny's face remained calm, a faint smile playing at the corner of his lips. He didn't raise his voice, didn't boast, didn't let the thrill of the moment cloud his judgment. The crowd realized something incredible. This was skill beyond brute force, intelligence over intimidation. He wasn't just reacting, he was controlling the flow of the battle with an invisible hand. Chuck, ever the fighter, narrowed his eyes and adjusted his stance. He wasn't used to someone reading him so well, countering instinctively and yet remaining calm under pressure. His punches became sharper, more forceful, testing the limits. But Manny responded with subtle shifts, dodges, and counters so fluid that they almost seemed like dance moves. A deadly precise dance that left the crowd gasping at every step. The turning point came when Chuck launched a rapid series of kicks aimed to overwhelm Manny. The gym collectively tensed. Time seemed to slow. Every spectator leaned in, phones frozen mid-recording. And then, Manny didn't just dodge. He anticipated the exact moment and direction of each strike, redirecting Chuck's momentum without a single wasted movement. Chuck felt it, the power of restraint, of awareness, and of absolute control. The sound of the strikes echoed in the room, but the impact on Manny was nothing. Instead, Chuck found himself off balance for the first time in decades, the legendary fighter feeling the unfamiliar twinge of being challenged in a way he hadn't expected. The audience erupted, some cheering, some gasping, and many whispering in disbelief. "Chuck, he's met his match. Manny, unbelievable." Even Chuck's expression changed subtly. There was no anger, no ego bruising, just recognition. Recognition that strength alone could not dominate skill tempered with calm. Manny, without a word, maintained eye contact, unflinching, showing that the fight wasn't about humiliation, pride, or proving superiority. It was about respect, awareness, and mastery of oneself. The gym went completely silent for a few seconds. An eternity in which the world seemed to pause. Every single person in that room understood they were witnessing a rare phenomenon, a clash of legends. Yet not a clash of ego. The subtle nod of acknowledgement from Chuck, the faint smile from Manny, and the quiet tension in the room told the story more powerfully than words ever could. Suddenly, a sharp clap echoed. Manny shifted slightly, almost theatrically, demonstrating control over Chuck's next anticipated strike. Chuck, breathing evenly but clearly impressed, stepped back, eyes narrowing in a mix of respect and realization. He was being outmaneuvered not by brute force but by intelligence, discipline, and absolute composure. The crowd could no longer contain themselves. Phones shot up, shouts erupted, and whispers of disbelief filled every corner. Trainers and fighters alike exchanged amazed glances, some muttering, "I've never seen Chuck like this," while others simply nodded in stunned approval. And just when it seemed the tension couldn't peak any higher, Manny did something no one expected. He paused, raised a single hand slightly, and stepped back, signaling the moment was enough. The gym fell completely silent once more. A silence even louder than the cheers. A silence that spoke of respect, strategy, and a lesson learned the hard way. Strength is nothing without awareness, and power is meaningless without control. The gym was buzzing with adrenaline, hearts racing, and minds struggling to process what had just happened. Chuck Norris, the living legend, had faced someone unlike any opponent he had ever encountered. And Manny, calm and collected, had demonstrated a level of skill and control that left everyone in awe. But the room was about to be hit with an even bigger shock, one no one expected. As Manny took a step back, he didn't just remain in the ring quietly. From his jacket pocket, he pulled out a folded document. The crowd murmured in confusion. Chuck, his breathing even but intense, raised an eyebrow. "What's that?" he asked, his tone curious but steady. Manny unfolded the papers and held them up. The words were simple, yet they carried an earth-shattering weight. He was not just any fighter, he had a much bigger reason for being here. "I am the new owner of this gym." The room went utterly silent. Trainers froze, fans dropped their jaws, and cameras wobbled in disbelief. Whispers spread like wildfire. "Wait, what? The owner, Manny? This changes everything." Chuck stepped closer, his legendary composure now mixing with genuine curiosity and a hint of surprise. You own this place?" he asked. Manny nodded calmly, a faint smile on his lips. "I came here not to prove strength or ego," Manny explained, his voice steady. "I came here to see who truly understands respect and discipline, to show that real power isn't about dominating others. It's about control, awareness, and integrity." The trainers and gym staff, who had been spectators moments ago, began to piece it together. Chuck, for all his experience and legendary status, realized that Manny had orchestrated this entire encounter with a lesson in mind. The powerful fighter who seemed quiet and unassuming had not only matched Chuck blow for blow, but had demonstrated a philosophy of true mastery. The crowd erupted into applause, not just for the fight, but for the lesson they had witnessed. Phones recorded the moment as history unfolded in real time. Chuck Norris, a symbol of raw strength and determination, gave Manny a nod of respect. The kind of nod that said, "I see you, you've earned it." For the first time in the gym's long history, people realized that strength was meaningless without wisdom, and power was empty without respect. Trainers and fans alike whispered, "This is more than a fight. It's a lesson we'll never forget." Chuck extended his hand, firm and confident, and Manny shook it. The gesture wasn't just a handshake. It was mutual recognition between two masters, a silent agreement that respect and skill mattered more than ego or showmanship. And then Manny addressed the crowd. "From today, the gym will not just be a place to test strength. It will be a place to learn discipline, patience, and humility. True mastery is about inspiring others, not intimidating them." The energy in the gym shifted completely. Trainers straightened, fans cheered louder, and even Chuck Norris, legendary and unshakable, smiled with genuine admiration. The revelation wasn't just about Manny's identity. It was about the lesson he had delivered. True respect earns recognition, not fear. The moment ended with a collective understanding that this day would be remembered forever. Manny had turned what started as a challenge into a masterclass in discipline, humility, and respect. And Chuck, the legendary icon, had learned that sometimes the quietest opponents carry the strongest lessons. Who do you think showed real power, Chuck's raw strength or Manny's calm mastery? Comment below and let us know. The gym was electric, yet calm. The air thick with the realization that something extraordinary had just occurred. Chuck Norris and Manny stood in the center of the ring, their battle of skill, power, and respect now behind them. But unlike a normal fight, this wasn't about who landed the hardest punch or who had the quickest reflexes. This was about recognition, humility, and justice. Chuck, breathing steadily yet still processing the revelation, looked at Manny with a new level of respect. He had faced countless opponents over decades, some fierce, some skilled. But none had taught him a lesson in composure, patience, and control like Manny had. It was clear that the quiet, disciplined fighter wasn't just skilled in combat. He was a master of perspective. Manny, meanwhile, remained calm, his demeanor unchanged from the start. The only thing that had shifted was the realization in Chuck's eyes. The legendary fighter now understood that his raw strength, while unmatched, was only one part of true mastery. Respect, awareness, and patience were just as essential. The crowd, which had been tense and awed just moments ago, erupted in applause. Phones recorded every expression, every subtle gesture, every silent nod exchanged between the two icons. Trainers, staff, and fans alike could barely believe what they had witnessed. A face-off between legends had turned into a masterclass on humility, strategy, and true power. Manny stepped forward and addressed the gym, his voice calm but firm. Today wasn't about defeating anyone. It was about understanding that respect is earned, not demanded. Strength is important, yes, but the greatest power lies in restraint, discipline, and awareness. And that applies to everyone, not just fighters or legends. Chuck nodded slowly. His legendary stare softened for the first time. There was no challenge, no ego, no competitive edge, only admiration. "You've reminded me of something I may have forgotten in my long career," Chuck said, his voice carrying weight. "True mastery isn't about proving yourself. It's about inspiring others and showing control even when no one is watching." The gym seemed to collectively exhale. Trainers whispered to one another, fans cheered, and even the staff were visibly moved. It wasn't just a lesson in combat. It was a lesson in life. Power alone could impress the world, but humility and respect left a lasting mark on history. Then Manny did something remarkable. He turned to the trainers and staff, the people who had been watching and learning throughout the ordeal. "From today, this gym isn't just about strength. It's about discipline, respect, and teaching others the value of humility. And to those who have shown consistent dedication, patience, and respect, it's time to reward your efforts." He pointed to the assistant trainers and the gym staff who had stayed composed, calm, and professional throughout the chaos. Among them, one young trainer who had quietly assisted without seeking attention caught Manny's eye. "You," Manny said, gesturing to the trainer. "You will now take on more responsibility. You've shown the qualities that truly matter: focus, respect, and composure. Today, you become the lead trainer of this gym, responsible for mentoring others in not just strength, but mastery." The young trainer's eyes widened in disbelief. "Sir, I don't know what to say," he stammered, tears welling up. Manny smiled faintly, nodding. "You don't need to say anything, just continue to do what's right. True reward comes from your actions, not from recognition alone." Meanwhile, Chuck stepped forward once more, extending his hand to Manny. The handshake was firm, carrying the weight of mutual respect. It wasn't just a gesture of courtesy, it was acknowledgement of the lesson learned, the battle fought, and the respect earned. "You've shown me something I hadn't felt in years," Chuck admitted. "Strength without control is nothing. Today, I've been reminded that patience, awareness, and respect define true power." The gym erupted again, applause, cheers, and even shouts of legend, echoing through the walls. Fans filmed the historic handshake, some visibly emotional, knowing they had witnessed something rare and unforgettable. Manny nodded to the crowd, raising a hand. "Remember this: respect is not about fear, money, or power. It's about how you treat others, especially when no one is watching. Every person here, every fighter, trainer, and fan, has the potential to embody it." Chuck smiled. a rare, genuine smile that reflected understanding and humility. The clash between these two icons had concluded, but the lesson would linger far longer than the fight itself. It wasn't just a story of skill or strength. It was a story about what makes someone truly powerful: character, respect, and humility. As Manny walked toward the exit, the gym was silent for a moment, then erupted into cheers once more. He had shown that true victory isn't about dominance. It's about inspiring others and recognizing real worth. The gym had finally settled. The echoes of cheers, gasps, and applause still lingered in the air. But the true impact of what had happened was deeper than noise or spectacle. It wasn't just a fight between two legends. It was a lesson in respect, humility, and the true meaning of strength. Manny had walked in quietly, unassuming, and had faced one of the most powerful and legendary fighters in the world, Chuck Norris. He didn't need to boast, shout, or intimidate. He let his actions, his control, and his discipline speak for him, and in doing so, he had shown everyone in the room a truth often forgotten in the heat of competition. True power isn't measured by force, but by awareness, patience, and humility. Chuck Norris, for all his fame and legendary status, had learned the same lesson that day. Even the strongest and most confident among us can be humbled, not by defeat, but by witnessing someone else's mastery of self. It wasn't about who landed the hardest punch or executed the fastest kick. It was about who remained calm under pressure, who showed respect even when challenged, and who controlled their own energy and ego. The young trainers who had assisted throughout the event saw the same truth. One of them, now promoted to lead trainer by Manny, realized that reward and recognition are not just about results or loud success. They are about consistency, respect, and dedication, even when no one is watching. The gym itself had transformed into more than just a training facility. It had become a place of learning, growth, and character development. Manny's exit from the ring was quiet, yet powerful. Every step he took reminded the onlookers that strength without humility is hollow, and power without respect is fleeting. Fans left the gym inspired, not just by the skill on display, but by the profound lesson in behavior, mindset, and integrity. And Chuck Norris, legendary as he was, walked away with a new understanding. Even a master can learn. Even a legend can be inspired. In the end, the fight was not about proving superiority. It was about inspiring respect, teaching humility, and showing that real strength is silent, not loud. The crowd, now buzzing with reflection, began sharing what they had learned. Phones captured the historic handshake, the nods, and the quiet smiles. Proof that sometimes, the most powerful moments are the ones that teach rather than destroy. Manny's message was clear. Respect isn't something you show because someone is famous, rich, or powerful. Respect is something you offer to everyone, especially when no one is watching. That is the mark of true strength. Fans, trainers, and even casual observers began repeating the words, feeling the weight of the lesson. They realized that life, like the fight in the gym, is full of challenges, confrontations, and moments that test ego and patience. And in each of those moments, the choice is always the same: show humility or give in to arrogance. As the last of the crowd filtered out, phones packed away, and lights dimmed, one truth remained unmistakable. Today, everyone had witnessed more than a fight. They had witnessed a life lesson. If you believe humility and respect are real strength, type respect in the comments below. And tell us, where are you watching from?